Welcome, guys. Welcome back to another episode of The Way. My name's Xenia. I'm joined with Jessie, and we're joined by two amazing guests. Do you want to introduce yourselves?
Sure, I'm Dan Blythe.
And I'm Charlie Blythe.
The surnames and all. We need to do our
Put my whole thing in there.
What do you guys do for work? What does your day-to-day look like? What are you guys up to?
I work for Alpha International. I'm the youth director, so pretty much my job is just to travel the world, listen to different youth pastors and create content and culture which will help young people bring the big questions of life into a safe space for conversation.
And I work for a charity called A21. We're a global anti-human trafficking organisation, so we work with victims of human trafficking and modern slavery. Yeah, love it.
Wow. How long have you guys been married for?
Married for 12 years.
12 years?
12 long years.
So we met at a festival. I saw Charlie from across the room. She was like lighting up the room, and I turned to my mate and I said, I might go and chat to that girl over there, and he's taller than me, better looking than me, stronger than me, and he said, oh no, I might go and have a look. I said, no.
You're like, hold up.
Excuse me. And so I just walked over to her, and I'm not that sort of guy, I'm quite an introvert, and I noticed she was wearing some jeans, which was like a very like unique brand, which you can't get many places, only in Australia. So I said, are they Subi jeans from Australia? And she goes, yeah, they are. I'm like, cool. And then that was it. That was my first line.
We've got a bit of a quirky question just to, break the ice a bit. But we wanted to ask, what is the most embarrassing thing that has happened to you when you were a teenager?
So I, growing up, David Beckham was my role model. I had like all of his haircuts, even like the braids, even the braids, which was like worst look. So that was embarrassing in itself. But I think there was a moment.
Do you remember the brain? So we're talking like, like that. He had that.
Yeah, I know.
Can you imagine that?
Right,
what a look.
Don't you dwell on it. Let's just
let's dwell on it. No, there's photo. Come on now.
Yeah.
One time I dyed my hair brown, and no one told me how to use hair dye. So no one told me that you put it in and then you wash it out. Yeah. So I just put it in and then left it in. And then I went to school the next day, and obviously it's England, so it just poured down with rain, and literally like this, my face. I was like in some horror movie, just like brown, just rolling down my whole face, uniform. Like people were like staring at me as I'm walking to school. Like, what is wrong with you?
I don't feel like I've got any. That's really embarrassing. I don't know if I've got any that embarrassing. The only one that comes to mind, when I was 18, I was trying to sort my finances out with this financial advisor guy, and he asked me the question, are you on the electoral roll? And I just don't know what that even is at the time, and I'm like, yeah, I've been paying electricity in this flat for a year. And he's just like looking at me.
He's like, no, the electoral roll, like, do you vote? And you're like, right, okay.
It was just the most embarrassing.
Yeah.
I feel like if that's the most embarrassing story you've ever had, that's pretty good. That's good. And I guess from all these stories, we all learned something, innit? It's like you now
100%.
know not to put fresh dye.
To wash it after.
But the whole series is called Failing Forwards this next month, and it's about how actually we are bound to fail, but we can learn from it. So what's a failure that you guys might have had, but actually you've learned from?
Okay. So when I was 18, I started sort of in a role where I was speaking publicly. I've always had a fear of public speaking. Like, I don't know why I do it, but I have. And I remember there was one time I was speaking in front of 2,000 people at the Dominion Theatre in London, and it was like a special Sunday, so like there was a lot of pressure on it. And for me, the pressure just got to me, and I had a mind blank, and I just totally forgot what I was going to be saying. I didn't have any notes on me, and so I just had a mind blank. I'm like, sorry, I don't know what I'm saying or what I'm doing. See you later. I just had to walk off stage in front of everybody. I was absolutely crushed. Like, I mean, you were crushed for me.
It was horrible to watch.
It was a big fail. It was a big fail. The sort of fail where you're like, I never want to do this again.
Yeah.
But I came off the platform, and there was a couple of people around me. They're like, no, you're called to do this. You're meant to be doing this.
Yeah.
And so don't give up. And they just said, you got to get up in the next service. Like, they made me. There was like no option to give up.
Wow.
And so I just remember like, I'm a Christian, so I remember just praying. And since that day, it was a failure, which has caused me to never really rely on my own strength, but always like trust God in like who He is and what He has called me to do. And every time I speak in front of anyone, and whether it's like 10 people or 10,000 people, like for me, I just know like it's not about succeeding or failing, if that makes sense. Like even if I do get a mind blank in the future, it doesn't really matter. Like I'm not there to impress people. I'm just there to do what I feel God's called me to do. So
that's great.
Wow.
Gonna keep doing it.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite a defining event, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
public fail, which is always hard.
Yeah.
What's yours? Is
Yeah.
it more private?
Yeah, I would probably say mine are like private fails. In my teenage years, I suffered really badly with like worry and anxiety. So, I mean, if we were talking about failures, I massively failed in managing to control my worry, my anxiety, and my fear levels. So I'd probably say it was more like an internal, ongoing, what I felt as like a failure. I couldn't. I missed out on a lot of things because of my worry, because of my anxiety. But over the years, and obviously when I look back on that, for me, it was learning how to trust in God. It was learning how to control my thoughts. So maybe that's the area that I failed in. I couldn't control my thoughts when I was younger in regards to the thought patterns, all that sort of stuff. Out of that, what it's taught me is obviously to trust in God. Whenever I do get the odd fearful thought that comes my way, I sort of like have to take control of that, like make sure I know what to do with that, who to go to with that, that sort of thing.
I think both of these examples are really interesting because with anxiety, right, it's the fear of not doing it. So you haven't done it yet, but then when you've done something and you fail within that, like how do you navigate it? So it's like you're going to face failure anyway. You can't prevent it. You can't prevent failure. That's an inevitable fact that we'll all go through. But like, how do you not become defined by your failure?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think whenever I do worry, it's always because I'm thinking about the future or I'm thinking about the past. And what happens is when you always focus on the future or the past, you miss the peace in the present and making the most of the present. So we've all got this unique ability where you can't think two things at once. You can only have one thought at one time. You might go in between lots of thoughts, but you can still think one thing at one time. And so it's really like where are you going to focus your thoughts?
And I think it is this learning and training your mind. This is what I've done. This is not who I am. But I think that's like something that you have to train your mind to do. And you'll naturally go there by default, because I think that's just our human nature to try and define ourselves by our weaknesses and by our failures and all that sort of thing. But it's training your mind, okay, no, this is what's happened. This is maybe what I've done. This is not who I am. You know,
there's a quote which says, don't let successes go to your head or failures go to your heart. And I think in the same way our failures shouldn't define us, neither should our successes ultimately. So if you manage to live in that place, I think it's a really healthy place to be.
Wow. Guys, it seems as though you met and then 2 years later you said you got married, which is amazing.
That's amazing.
It feels like nowadays there's generally a theme of just discernment, like figuring out timing, figuring out who. There's so much pressure on it. It's like, what's some advice for that?
I think to starters, I don't believe in like there's love at first sight. Disney will say there is, but I.
Other than when you said you saw Charlie from across the room.
I would say that was like at first sight. There's always like at first sight, and there's even lust at first sight, but there's not love. So for me, I believe love is 1 Corinthians 13, which is the biblical definition of it. Love is patient, love is kind, does not envy, does not boast, does not dishonor others, is not self-seeking, is not easily angered, keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. Always trusts, always hopes, always protects, always perseveres. Love never fails, right? So that's what I believe love is. So it's not, to me, it's not a feeling. It's not a trend. That's what love is.
Wow.
And there's no way I could have built that with Charlie or seen if she had those qualities from a distance. The only way is through a friendship. And so for me, like, I think my number one relationship advice is just like, don't look to date someone or start a romantic relationship. Just look to build a really good friendship first. Because through the friendship, you'll actually find out what they're like.
What do you think, Charlie?
I mean, off the back of that, I think when you're talking about Christian dating and what the world looks like now in the dating scene, you know, a lot of it's online. You've got a lot of apps and stuff like that, and which is all great. I've got friends that have met great people online and stuff, but I think it's just it all comes down to as well like communication, and so that's built obviously through friendship. It doesn't matter what relationship you're in, does it? It doesn't matter if it's a friendship or a romantic relationship. Like communication is key, and so I think another thing I would just say when it comes to that is like I don't believe personally you can build a friendship or relationship through WhatsApp or Instagram or TikTok or TikTok. I'm getting my words spewed here.
It's a minty social media platform.
I can't remember the stats, but it's like 45% is of communication is body language, 50% is tone of voice, and then 5% is words, and that can only be built through physical, face-to-face communication.
There's so many preconceptions of dating, and almost everyone's is different. Sometimes you do just gotta, as you said, like, get to know someone and see if they are compatible to figure out, they're not. And that's almost can be labelled as a failure itself.
Yeah.
There's probably going to be people who are watching this who've done the dating around and people who haven't. And both of them are going to be feeling, oh, I've failed at that because nothing's been fruitful. It's like both sides, there's no winner at this given point.
Yeah.
But what kind of advice could you give to people who are just trying it out and seeing it and feeling like a failure? How can you encourage us as Gen Z?
Well, a lot of failure or idea of failure comes from the time zones that the world puts on us. They say you need to be engaged by this age, married by this age, have kids by this age, and it's like there's all these like age time zones that everyone says. But when you think like Milan is an hour ahead of London, but that doesn't make London slow. If you're 35 years old and you're a professional footballer, you're considered old. But if you're 35 years old and you're an MP, you're considered young. Barack Obama was 55 when he became president. Donald Trump was like 75. The point I'm trying to make is there's always going to be people in front of you and there's always going to be people ahead of you. But if you want to live a really healthy life in your relationships, you don't compare yourself or compete with anyone else, but just enjoy spending time with the people in your world. Be proactive and keep meeting new people as much as you can. Don't stay, locked away in your house thinking that, the person your dreams is going to like knock on the door out of nowhere. Like, here I am. Like, it doesn't happen like that. You need to go into spaces where you're going to meet people, be proactive. And then ultimately, just enjoy relationships being built in your own time and don't let anyone else put a time on you.
Yeah, I would say exactly the same thing. Like, let them be organic. You don't want to force things. You don't want to force time frames. That's like you were saying, like nothing works when you're trying to do something just because you feel like there's a time camp on it. Or I do think it's important to get around different people. Like put yourself. Go out with your friends, make sure you are like meeting people in different environments, obviously safe environments when I say that, and then just let things happen organically. Don't feel pressure on yourself to find someone and the right one, and just
and there is no one, is there?
Yeah, like I don't think so personally.
Sometimes people say you got to find the one, but like Charlie and me would be compatible with many people, and in fact if I died today, like I'd hope she'd remarry and find someone to raise our boys, but you can choose one person really well, and that's the whole thing.
That takes time. I'd say the other thing that's hard like today is like relationships are built predominantly off friendships, right? And friendships take time to build. And I know in today's culture, if someone's seen to be having coffee with everyone, they're a player, they're playing the field or whatever. And so I think that's one of the challenges today is how do you get to know people? I hear a lot of like, oh, he's such a player, he's gone out there and he's met with 10 girls, or she's, been stringing him along. But just remembering things take time to build. Yeah. And I hate that sometimes because when I have the conversation, I'm like, oh, tell me about that. Why do you think they're playing the field? And it's like, oh, well, he was meeting with her for 6 months and now he's decided that he doesn't want to be with her. Well, it might be that after spending time together, they've actually just both come to the conclusion that they're not compatible. Yeah. And rather find that out earlier rather than later down the line.
So how in the Bible it talks about like being unequally yoked, and a lot of Christians, that's what you hear in dating, like you can't be unequally yoked. But like as you grow over time and you grow with somebody, you change, your likes and your dislikes will evolve. But how do you manage the differences and growth in a relationship over time?
Yeah, so if anyone's listening and they're not familiar with that scripture where it's talking about being equally yoked, so the yoke was the teaching that they'd have from their like rabbi back in the day or their teacher. And so Jesus said, like, my yoke is easy, my burden is light. What he's saying is my teaching is not like a heavy burden on you. So a yoke was also like the visual that the writer was saying, like these cows would like pull these like things for their harvest, and the yoke was like this heavy thing that would go on their back. So the yoke was like this thing that is carried, and what Jesus is saying is like the teaching, the yoke is meant to be light. It's not meant to be a heavy burden on us. It's meant to give us freedom. And so when it says be equally yoked, it's saying if you've got someone who doesn't have that same like teaching and understanding of life, then pretty much you're not going to be able to move together sort of in the same pace. And
That's
so
good.
For me and Charlie, we've always had different worldviews on different things in life, but we've always had the same biblical understanding of the Bible. And if there's anything that we've got a disagreement on, we always just read it together, spend some time waiting on the Holy Spirit to get that discernment together. But ultimately, like, I think, the teachings of Jesus, especially in the New Testament, like are really like clear what he was about. He's about life to the full. He's about freedom, grace and love. And I think those values his yoke, that teaching, for us is like the most important thing that we want to live by in our life, because we've seen the blessing of it in our own life, and we've seen the blessing of it on our friends and our family. So loads of outer stuff, sure, we can disagree on, but the inner stuff, the teaching of Jesus,
the core values.
The core values is what we definitely agree on, and I think that's why we've been able to get through differences, because that one thing stays the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just say, I echo totally what Dan said. Like, if your core values, your core beliefs don't align, it'd be very hard to have a healthy relationship.
Right.
So, like Dan's saying, like, you might like pineapple, I might not like pineapple. That's not really going to affect our relationship or the direction we're heading. Or
because that's actually a proper analogy. Like, you won't let me have pineapple on pizza. Well, I grew up in Hawaii, and that was my pizza, and it's just like, yeah,
gross.
To be fair, I'm full Hawaiian.
yeah.
That's so gross. You should just not be having fruit on pizza, guys.
I don't know how I feel about it personally. I'm not really sure how I
No?
feel about
Have you tried it?
pineapple on pizza. I don't
Don't try
to.
it.
You haven't tried?
I don't
Have you
really
tried
want
it?
to.
So you're
No, I
judging.
actually just,
God.
no, I actually
You're
just,
judging. You
I
haven't
actually
tried
just pull
it.
off the pineapple and then we just eat the, because it's with ham, isn't it?
Yeah, it just feels
Yes.
like you guys are judging without trying,
Yeah.
and that doesn't feel fair.
No.
No, I just know that fruit isn't meant to be on hot things.
Well, I just think Jesus' yoke is
Wow.
light, and you're judging and not acting like Jesus right now. So
Anyway, yeah, I think like that's not going to make a significant difference in our relationship, even though it might seem like it is having a significant. I'm joking.
Seems
We're
pretty
all good.
significant
No,
from-
it's not.
no, I just have to. I just eat pizza Hawaiian on my own.
But yeah, I think those sort of things, they're not going to affect your relationship. Where are the bigger things, your beliefs, your core value systems, the things that actually direct your life and the course that you're going to take,
Yeah.
those things do need to align if you want a healthy relationship, healthy marriage, whatever that looks like.
But if I can just add one thing. So a lot of my friends who did get married, who are not married now, one of the things that they went for wasn't like making sure that the character and core values were the same, like the yoke and the teaching that they were living by was the same. They went for looks over character. They went for charisma over like what they wanted to do with their lives. And because they went with those things, 5 years, 10 years down the track, the relationships didn't work. And so I think, it's not like you want to go on a first date and say, tell me, what the principles and values that you live your life by. But again, if you're building that friendship and like finding out what those things are, it's obviously going to be like a central part of marriage.
Yeah.
No,
That's great,
good.
isn't it? That's wonderful.
That is good. And I think like, I remember I was watching something the other day, and the guy said that people don't get into relationships and be like, oh, we're gonna stay together because of the love, but love is like the fuel that drives the work in the relationship. Like, relationships are about work. Every day you find out something new about each other, but because you have that love, it fuels you wanting to do that.
But that's what you described in 1 Corinthians
Yeah.
13.
Yeah.
Literally.
It's like love is patient, love is kind. It's
Yeah.
things that you don't find out until you do.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we talked about some, like, when there's moral differences around teaching and being yoked that way, and pineapple, all that sort of stuff. But what are some red flags in your book?
Ooh.
I mean, I think there's loads of red flags. The thing is, it's like finding the green flags is like where the hard work is, because, when you're with somebody and, like it says, birds of a feather flock together, like attracts like. And so I think sometimes like you got to look at your circle around you and see the sort of people that you're attracting. And, naturally, like kind people do attract kind people, and
Right.
narcissistic people
Yeah,
sometimes, well, I mean, narcissists don't really like hanging out with anyone but themselves sometimes, or people that will serve them. But I mean, I guess the point that I'm trying to make is like, early warning signs is that there's no compromise, there's no forgiveness. It's my way or the highway. There's a power and control dynamic where it's like one like serves the other. But you're looking for like a friendship where there's equality, where there's respect for one another, and when one person makes a mistake, like it said in love, it says love keeps no record of wrongs, which means love forgives. And ultimately, if you can't forgive someone for the little things, you're not going to be able to forgive them for the big things.
Wow.
So I'd look for those.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Do you want some superficial ones?
Come on.
Surface ones?
Drop them.
Listen, if they're not on time all the time, I ain't got time.
Really?
I don't like I couldn't be with someone that was late all the time.
Right. So that's
drive me insane.
But that's like a red flag for you. That wouldn't be a red
Yeah,
flag
but I'm
for
talking
every...
about fun surface level ones.
Right,
He was
okay,
just
yeah.
talking about.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't
cool.
think everyone cares about pineapple on pizza.
Well, what other red flags?
Tea drinkers.
Right.
Tea drinkers.
Yeah.
Serious.
Okay, so this is the Charlie Blythe red flags. Wait, I love tea.
I feel attacked.
You've just
Yeah, but you've switched to coffee.
Yeah.
eliminated every British person and Nigerian
I'm a-
person
yeah.
in one sweep.
I'm a British person. I don't drink tea.
I never knew that about tea.
Yeah.
Wow.
Learn something new in
every
your marriage
day.
every day.
There you
Amazing.
go.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh,
Thank you,
thank you
mate.
for having
We've loved
us.
it.
Yeah,
It's been good.
it's been a real privilege, hasn't it,
Honestly,
Xenia,
it
to
is.
have you guys on and hear your thoughts. So much wisdom. But guys, do make sure that you subscribe. We've got some interesting stuff coming up the next couple of weeks. So yeah, do tune in and we'll see you soon.